Welcome to PTG TV. This is your host, Antonio Hicks. So let's talk about there really is no democracy. And I say that, and I bring it up the first part of this week as we get into this election cycle, which we've already been into, and now we have early voting taking place for the primaries. You have to really start thinking about, is there really a democracy taking place amongst the people that's here? Because we seem to always be limited between like a two-party system as if other parties don't exist. And even when people run as an independent or they go with Green Party, people still always say, well, there's not enough people to support them. And you have to really ask yourself, like, why is that? Like, why are we always hyper-focused on the two particular parties? And then you got the right side versus almost like the left side, even though Democrats are not necessarily always on the left. You have some lefts in there, but it's not the extremists that the Republicans are painting them out to be. Because if it was, we would all have the things that we were looking for, which is, this whole socialist thing that they always promote out there, which socialist platforms work well for everybody. They just don't want to acknowledge them as that. But yeah, it's just to get to that point. And then when you talk to Republicans about, history and slavery and stuff, they say, well, it's your Democrats, not acknowledging that the parties kind of switched over between then versus, now. It's so when you think about it, like in the heart of democracy, it's like what we typically call democracy lies at that fundamental promise that we have the power to actually choose our leaders and shape our laws and to forge like our destiny of this country itself. But beyond the curtain of that promise, does the true choice, which I'm saying towards, actually exist? Or are we merely just participants in this like big whole illusion of voting not only for hope, but out of fear?
I'm being indicted for you, the black population. I am being indicted for a lot of different groups.
A racist party? Are you involved in a racist?
We're not a racist country, Brian. We've never been a racist country.
And I think that's really what's been driven to, especially when marginalized communities take place, is always this, even on the Republican side, it's always this fear, because on the Republican side, it's like, do you really want the extreme left, pushing the LGBTQ into your face and indoctrinating your kids and grooming them to take on this particular aspect of themselves that you don't want in your house, and taking over control of what the parents want versus what society or the so-called leftist society wants from them? Or do you want to give away your money and all of your freedoms to people coming over here illegally, even though nobody technically outside of Africans and Native Americans were over here originally? Is everybody's fear, and even on the Democratic side, okay, well, do you really want those Republicans coming into office because you've seen what they can do and what they're going to do? And if you get them in office, they're going to strip away your freedoms, and it's always a place of fear from both sides. And you really have to the question is like, is democracy really based upon choice of wanting to get somebody better, or is always a premise of fear to where they're pushing you to vote on one side based upon the fear of what the other side might actually do? So you're not necessarily voting to vote to get certain laws into place. You're voting under the guise of fear, because if you don't vote one way, then there's a chance that the other person gets in and they will strip away everything that you have right now. And so that whole premise, or the promise of democracy, was born out of a desire for freedom and representation. So it's been that beacon for hope for centuries. I mean, this is what we've been hoping for, it's what we've been praying for, it's what we've been trying to push, even towards Christian narratives or other narratives, people trying to get, more social things pushed into place. But when we navigate the complexity of like our modern governance, the essence of democracy seems to be is fading away, and it's overshadowed by the politics of fear and just basic manipulation. Because you have certain things, narratives being pushed in order to coerce you to go from one side versus the other side. And even when you look at some of the extreme right-wing people, that's really like the MAGA Republicans now, because it's the whole Make America Great thing, is even before 45 got into office, those people existed. They just didn't have a leader or a flag to get behind. Almost like a sign of war. And I don't want to premise it. I don't want to push it as that. But I mean, really what it takes, because what does it take? It takes a strong leader to really get people together and get them under one cause. And I mean, for the sake of giving this man props, which he who named. We do not speak his name. I mean, he did just that. This man literally cared nothing about the poor people at all. Like, he really cared nothing about poor people. And that's the problem that the Democrats face as well too, because they might say they do, they technically don't. I mean, I'm speaking I'm speaking the truth to what I've seen firsthand. They technically don't, because generally the poorer people, they're concerned more about work, so they don't have enough time to actively participate into the system of politics and getting out, being involved in community. And not all of them, I'm not saying everybody does, but generally speaking, people that are working class people, they don't get involved because they're working. And if they're not working, they're trying to recoup from having to work so much or living in such a life to where they're not necessarily able to do things a regular middle class person can do. And you can say it's based upon, you know, their life choices or whatever. But I'm like, it could have been an environment that they grew up in. But nevertheless, even if they didn't go down the educated route or picking certain jobs that would allow them to be able to afford certain things and live a certain lifestyle, they're still people. And people still need somebody to watch out for them and to guide them and help shape their future and push them, actually, even if they're not doing a certain thing, push them towards a way of being able to take care of themselves and or help them out in a way to where they don't have to worry about certain economic things that we should not, some of us as Americans, we should not have to worry about, because some of the countries we give to have those same socialist platforms that we wish that we could have, which is, I always find that to be interesting because we give to countries, and Republicans give to, because the Congress controls the power of the purse, they allow us to give over into countries, and they always say, oh, well, you know, the left wants this socialist governance here. But I'm like, well, the countries that you give into have those socialist platforms built into their system. So I'm like, why are you, if you don't want those things happening to Americans, well, why are you giving those to other countries to where they have those same things that we're looking for in those very countries, from education to healthcare to parental maternity leaves and whatnot? It's built into their system. So I'm like, I've always found it interesting to where we can't have it over here in the U.S., but we have no problem with getting that funding together and pushing over to other countries so they can have the very things that we want over here.
To testify before you today.
Populated areas. Stop supporting the genocide. Save the children of Gaza.
And so then you have to really think about, when we think about democracy, and how we only have two opposing sides over here. So we got a two-party system when technically we have four parties here. I mean, because if you really look at independence, it really are. It's a party in itself. But still having only the two parties, it reduces the electoral process to like a binary choice. I mean, limiting the spectrum of political discourse and leaving little room for alternative voices. Because it's almost like if you were part of the Christian faith, it's kind of hard to pull somebody away from Christianity to go towards like Islamic beliefs or the Quran or to Buddhism or any of those things, because they want to say this country is built on Christianity. But it's either you're with a Democrat or you're with a Republican. And it's hard going to knock on somebody's door that's been a hardcore starch Democrat and convincing them to switch over to an independent side. No matter how great the independent could be. I mean, it could be the greatest person out. I mean, look at Bernie. Bernie was an independent at first. And Bernie didn't really win until he became a Democrat. And Bernie was still, the views he had as an independent are the same views that he has as a Democrat that he's been fighting for, which I said about in my last video, he's been pushing for actively for over the years that he's been into office. And I'm like, and it's sad because I'm like, we have to be open to other parties. But truth to where it is, even if you have another party, if you don't get enough votes in place, the other party doesn't really do anything. They can't get in office because you don't have a lot of people to actively support them. So now you got voters that feel trapped because they're either choosing the candidates who inspire them, or they got to pick between the lesser of two evils, driven by their whole fear of the other side's victory. So it's like, why are we always picking between the lesser of two evils? Like, I mean, real talk, why are we always picking between that alone? And it's sad because we actually have, like I said in my last, we actually have some great people out there running for office. I mean, I consider myself a great person. I was running for office, but we have great people out there running for office. It was very much so active than what I was. I mean, I did a lot of stuff, but when it came to like running my campaign, I was a one-man army, and a lot of it, and it didn't even get on my stuff, and it sounded like a bitter person, but a lot of it was because it was being blocked because the party didn't want me running against a 6-term incumbent at the time. And so when people are running, they don't have to deal with stuff that I had to deal with. It's still hard for them to get in place because the Democrats typically back people that they've known, they themselves know outside of no matter how much work that you've done. And so that's the person that they will actively push to be in front of the public's eye. And then when you really start thinking about democracy, you got to think about some of the elected people that's already into place. And typically, like in my state alone, Georgia is considered a purple state. But when you get down to the Gold Dome, it's a Republican state. I mean, Republicans control everything here. And so now you got to deal with voter suppression and gerrymandering.
North Carolina has approved new congressional maps, while a Georgia judge has tossed out that state's maps.
They lost representation in Congress. And so the U.S. District Judge Steve Jones ruled today that that violated the Voting Rights Act, which is meant to protect black voter representation.
And so if democracy, it thrives on participation, they use those tactics of participation to gerrymander and redistrict districts and counties and stuff to thin out that vote, especially on a Republican side, thin out that vote to where you won't have as many people pushing for a Democratic process. They have more of the Republicans in place, and it's funny because we Democrats, well, I'm cutthroat. I'll cut for the throat. If it's gonna help, I'm always where the Republicans are. If I'm all for, like I said in my last thing, stacking out courts, I'm all for helping out the party if it means to help the people. I mean, at the end of the day, you call me what you want. Republicans are doing it. So if why are we the only ones playing by the rules when Republicans don't play by the rules themselves? And I think everybody has that right to vote. And I think when you dilute that right to vote, that's when people really get frustrated and they don't show up. And now what happens? It's the marginalized communities. They get frustrated because they feel as though their voice is not being heard and people aren't doing anything really to act upon those things. And so when you dilute their voice and the things that they're pushing for to help out their communities, to help out their school systems, help out, when it comes to like life choices or it comes to birth, parental stuff, or being able to take care of the kids, they don't really see those things come into place because the district has been gerrymandered, and people that will actually be good in office to help fight for that, they can't get in because the district has been cut in half. Like even here in Georgia, they've cut it so bad to where they use the premise as, oh, we're doing this to actually help the black voters out. But then they cut it so bad to where they put Democrats against Democrats in districts that was like heavily blue. And so doing this, the practices of that, especially Republican-controlled states, manipulate electoral boundaries and impose barriers upon the people, not to uphold the democratic process, but to secure a power of a select few, which means to keep them in power and to ensure that they have everything they need to be successful. And then when you literally look at democracy, it's like now, people trying to get into office or people running for office and trying to run against incumbents, you have to look at the power of money and how money influences politics. And I'm bringing all this stuff up now because this is the stuff that we have to be conscious of, and I'm sure you hear it all the time. Like I'm sure if you listen to any progressive channels like T1T, TYT, or like the Midas Touch or some other people, and then push progressive stuff, we always talk about money in politics and how money in politics influences everything from bills getting passed to bills not getting passed to them just being docked to where they don't get out anywhere. And or, we're pushing for certain agendas when it comes to the military complex or police reform, and not even getting police reform, but we're keeping police reform taking place because of money being influencing everything. And it's like the lobbyists control everything, and people are doing whatever they want. Not candidates, but elected officials doing what donors want because the donors are helping to run their campaign. And so in the shadows of all of our elections loom that lower influence of how money really shapes that election as a whole, from campaign finances, it often is dominated by the wealthy and corporate interests, that's skewing the democratic process altogether. So policies and candidates, they become commodities, and their visions and ideas are bought and sold. So if you got the right kind of money, which is, I think we all should come together, like us people on the left, I won't even say the extreme left, progressive people, to form a lobbying group. Because at the end of the day, I think that anybody will support a bill if you're backing up their campaign. So average voters don't even have a chance to even influence any of those things because they don't even have the money or the power to do that. I mean, just like alone, like if you look at the average cost it takes to run a campaign itself, like House incumbents, they generally come in with a war chest of 2.5 million, and Senate incumbents are coming in with 10.8 million. So you think if you're a new person running for office and you don't have a huge following behind you, you're going to have to meet at least half of that, if not more than that, just to even get your name out there, to give people an idea as to who you are, just so they can show up and support you and vote for you for primaries, and then after primaries pushing them to go towards actual general election. And we really have to get towards that, because if we don't, we've all run into the problem where people are just tired and they're not showing up. Same as this like election cycle now that they're telling people to write in, we don't stand for genocide or something to that degree, as opposed to voting for, our general or primary candidate like President Biden. And it's like, I understand that. And it's like, I get mad at the whole Palestine thing. I get mad at Palestine. I mean, first of all, I don't want to see anybody get killed like that. Because like the same thing what I feel with Congo, and I feel with the Uyghurs and stuff too. And even Ukraine, because I have to put Ukraine in the boat. I don't feel as though, I don't think we should be funding a lot of that stuff, but I think that we should help as much as we can, because I don't want to see civilians get killed. And when you see a country that's slaughtering civilians, and we're actively giving to the country that's slaughtering those civilians, but yet we'll put on our capes to say that, like when we did with Libya, we'll put on our capes to say, oh, we're coming here to help these people out. Well, why aren't you doing the same thing when it comes to the Palestinians? And even if I pulled it out, like people always say, well, pull it, why should we care about other countries? Well, let's just take that out of it then. So maybe we shouldn't care about what's happening in other countries because we have our own issues over here, but your money is going towards those other countries. So I'm like, even if that's the case, well, then let's be concerned about the money and how our money is being spent. Even like in my last thing, I'm like, well, I'm one of those people that I think America should come first to a degree, because we got so many people over here suffering right now. I mean, we have addicts on the street now with us legalizing the drugs, like in well, they didn't legalize them, but you got cases like that in California where they reduce some of the crimes, sentencings and stuff, and people who going to jail for what. And I forget, I think it's Oregon, to where they legalize a ton of drugs, and now you got people ODing or people blacked out on the streets from the drugs that they're using. And it's like, we have so many issues that we have to face over here and we have to deal with over here. I think we have to address those first before we start really giving a ton of money to other countries. So like, even if you're not worried about Palestinians, which you should be, or people in the Congolese, which you should be, or you cared about the Uyghurs over in China, which you should be. Even if you're not, you have to look at some of how much our money is going over there and how much it's an influence. Because if you really care that much about it, if you don't care that much about it, you should at least care about the funds and how the funds are being spent. And then you go over into how I don't think there's a democracy for the people when we look at how media and misinformation plays a part in any of that. Because I mean, you look at social media sites and what's allowed to make it through the cracks early on in the early elections, when 45 first decided to run for office, and he ran all these fake news stories, and he would talk about the fake news, but he controlled the narrative of the fake news because he was the one pumping out the information on the fake news. So because he made his truth to be true, when the media reported anything against what he's already put out there, then he can cry wolf and say, well, no, you can't listen to the fake news agencies because that's not necessarily true. And he says that because he's already put his information out to make you believe what he wants you to believe. So his base can stay behind that and say, well, right, because he already told us what was really going on and he told us what was going to happen. So when you came out with your story, we just knew it was going to be fake. And then you have the gatekeeping that take place with the media companies, to where information that should come out to people to get them to determine how they're going to move within society and then who they're going to vote for, depending upon how much money is actually going to those organizations from those major, like we were talking about money policies before, those major donors, then the media company isn't sharing the information because it will sway them, it will sway people to go a different way. And then it's the information that's from the donors that goes into these massive media companies, which helps shapes and influence people that's not, and I hate to say this, they aren't critical thinkers. Like, they don't actively go out and try to find a ton of information. Like, Wikipedia is not the stand-all truth for all information, because anybody can go in there and edit Wikipedia. And we push so much money into these media companies to where, depending on what you want people to believe, if you got enough money, it could be to where you can push certain ads. And as long as the system itself, because they do have checks and balances now, the algorithm and pick up on it, you can make people believe pretty much what you want them to do, as long as you can dodge that. And then we don't even do enough when it comes to, candidate visibility. So now even Facebook now has put out a policy to where you can't really advertise when it comes to political stuff anymore. They so-called stopped it. And I understand why, because of what Zuckerberg had just went through when he had the Senate hearing, and how they was trying to get him to apologize. To kids and stuff, and how they're being influenced by social media and then being bullied on social media. But I'm like, I can't apologize for what parents should be doing, and or how they're allowing for information to be pumped into misinformation to be pumped into regular citizens. And so I get it. In his frustration, he cut it all out. So now you can't even advertise anymore on when it comes to political stuff. When I think the answer should have been, if a candidate is running an ad, or if a candidate is running the ad, there should be a disclaimer at the bottom to say that, other candidates exist, and, you might want to go and check out. You don't have to put their name out there, but just say that, other candidates exist. Please make sure you do your information and do your justice to make sure that this candidate is who he or her, who they say they are. And if what they're actually doing, they're actually living out in their own personal lives. And it also helps with facilitating political discourse. So, if you got right-wing people, because we saw a lot of this, it was so much fear-mongering going on and all this misinformation going out that it actually pushed people to be more right-wing and more extreme, which is why you had a young kid up in New York going and kill more black people in the grocery store, because he honestly believed, talking about, we were shaping stuff, and I forget his narrative. He was like, it was just a race war, so a race war going on, and that's why he did what he did. So at the end of the day, I mean, even when I'm talking about this, and I think that our vote should be cast not out of fear, but in the light of some hope. Like, it's time to rekindle the true spirit of democracy, to ensure that it serves not the interests of the few, but the dreams of the many. And I believe together, we can help redefine what it means to choose to participate and to make our voices heard by participating, by being active, and by being involved, and making sure that anybody that comes up with you with misinformation, that you correct them and let them know what's right. And it doesn't have to be out of a place of anger or really just getting frustrated with them, but tell them what it is and say, you can believe what you want to believe, but here are the facts. And you going your way, depending on how they're voting or how, what the certain beliefs come in, could harm other people. And if you don't want to seek out the actual truth, then this lets you know that you're complacent in what's taking place to other communities. Much so as I had to talk to my mother about this when she was talking about the Fannie Mae Willis, the district attorney down here in Georgia, and people trying to discredit her because of an affair she had with one of her colleagues with the case against 45. And I'm like, well, if his people had not brought it up, you would not know that had existed. So I'm like, only thing that I should be cared about, if anything, is if the truth. And if it's the truth, when it comes to holding 45 accountable, I don't care what that person did in their own personal lives. It's between them and their spouses and how they deal with it. So same as when it came to Bill Clinton, I don't care what Bill Clinton had going on under his desk. Was he doing his job the right way? Was he making sure this country was safe? Was he making sure the economy was booming? Was he pushing things in the right direction for all of us average Americans? I don't care what's going on in your personal life, as long as it's not harming anybody, you aren't harming yourself, and you're not causing any disdain or anything in other communities. If you're not doing any of those things, what you do is between you, your partner, and who you believe in spiritually. That's how I feel about any of those things. So if Fannie Mae was doing what she was doing, I honestly don't care about any of those things. And I think that if the case against 45 is the truth and the evidence is the truth, then that's what we should run with. So make sure y'all, let's join in on this discussion. Y'all chime in below, like, how do y'all feel about democracy? Does it really benefit the people? Do we even have a true democracy? But I do ask you to be a part of the movement. Get out, become involved, because your voice needs to be heard, and every vote that we have out here counts and it matters. Because democracy, I mean real democracy, it starts with you. So make sure y'all hit that like, y'all subscribe, turn on y'all notification bells. Thank y'all to all the new people that's following me now. I really appreciate that now. I'm actually sitting at over 4,000 people now, which I'm surprised because I didn't even have that many towards the first part of this year. So thank y'all for tuning in to this channel. My channel is strictly based upon politics, technology, and gaming. I'm going to try to split that out throughout the course of the weeks now. So first part of the week, I'm pretty much talk about politics unless something drastic happens in the middle of the week. I'm going to cover more technology stuff. And I'm going to do some gaming towards the end of the week, try to tie everything in together, and then talk about, video games altogether. Give us some way to kind of desensitize, well, not desensitize, just kind of ease our way down and relax from this whole, the start of the week. Because I think once you get into politics, it get real hot and heavy. So make sure y'all turn on the notification bells. Like I said before, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. And thank y'all for being here. This channel is a little different than most places. I know it's just like a variety channel, but it is a variety channel because of the person who I am, because I'm actively involved and I participate in all of those things. And it's hard for me to focus on one because I think all of them play a part in each aspect of those topics, from politics to technology and gaming, from gaming into technology, and how gaming can influence culture and society and politics, and how technology can influence the gaming industry and politics as a whole, and how we do things, especially with this whole conversation about AI. So stay tuned for the next episode. Make sure y'all join in on the stream. So if you even if you come in here, if you want to talk about it more live while I'm on air, we can talk about it more. I stream every Monday and Wednesday. I'm adding TikTok into that stream. I haven't set a schedule just yet on when I'll be doing TikTok. So make sure, again, y'all keep y'all notification bell turned on when I push out an update, so you know when I'm actually doing TikTok. And then follow me across all of my social media platforms to make sure you see where I'm at and what I'm doing when it comes to having any discussion, and we can talk anywhere. Because I mean, if I'm actually out talking to the community anyway, which I am, because it's campaign season anyway, I have no problem with talking to everybody online. So follow me on my Discord too. So if you really want to talk and we want to have a whole conversation, follow me on my Discord. I'm literally on my Discord every single day. Like, I am pulled up on Discord every single day. So we can sit down, we can have a conversation. We can even go into a little chat room, have a little drink, and let's just sit down and talk about society, economics, and what's on your mind. Because I like generally helping people out, because I wouldn't do what I do if I wasn't interested in helping people out. So y'all be safe out there. Love you all. Until next time, Matrix out.